oil now goes missing. And this is what Senator was shocked, right? Senate team denied access to warehouses, with sources revealing that health officials had declared consignment and investigation unfit for human consumption. And we know about this particular saga of the edible oils that two CSs right now also, they're in the crosshairs as far as investigations is concerned. Whether we'll see them as some people's heads rolling, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. But the fact that we have some of its consignments that are coming into the public domain and they're unfit for the public consumption still raises question on whether we've learnt as well from the contaminated sugar that was in the public domain. Do they really care about you as Mwananchi? Well, they can actually send you anything that is poisonous. And they don't really care a fig about what you do take. As far as somebody will just get some money from some deal, that will be it. This has been in their warehouses for the longest, because even the local manufacturers or the processors of these edible oils did not want to buy this particular edible oil that was in the country, and it has been in the just salted away in the warehouses, no one wanting them to be bought. Now they've disappeared according to the SAT, but we want to interrogate what a country that we are living in. Do we have any burden of conscience regarding our children, our wives, our fathers, our elderly amongst us, on what we are feeding them? We don't care. Contaminated things will come into the public domain. No one will really care until it becomes a scandal. Is when now a task force and investigation will be put up to say, where can we track it back? Where did it come from? What was the source? What was the requisition nature of it? What were the specifications? So these edible oils and disappearance of it. Martin, let's just begin with you.
Is it well, even to imagine that there is an emergency requiring us to import cooking oil is living in a utopia? Because what you are saying is this, that I would understand that if there was rice, I can cook it and eat it without oil. If there was greens, I can cook them and eat them without oil. So there can never be such an emergency as to warrant us to import 9.3 billion of edible oils. Because this is not, you're not looking at food. You're looking at an ingredient that goes into food.
Okay, the accurate amount was actually 16 billion shillings.
Yes, I wish you were talking about rice, or you're talking about maize. We are talking about oil. And then you bring in crude and refined, and then you start giving us stories about it has not moved from the KNTC's warehouses into the market. So what was the emergency about? The way it was put together, remember before that, KNTC was a moribund institution. There was nothing. I mean, apart from some bicycles that it used to sell at some point, who else knew about KNTC? But we made it relevant, we created avenues, we gave it a budget, only to import edible oil, which turns out that's not edible after all. The point is that this is a glaring example of corruption, a glaring example of abuse of office, a glaring example of how not to use public money. I don't even know why we are talking about it. The people behind it should be somewhere behind bars. It does not need a rocket scientist to tell you so and so was involved, so and so is involved, so and so is involved. Including the people who release the money from Treasury, to give them to go and do it. Because what was the budget? And most likely you will find that these are some of those things that were being done without a budget, and therefore brought back later to the National Assembly to approve, which again is an illegality. So from the word go, this was not a good project for Kenyans, but it was a fantastic project for rent seekers and for kickbacks. Small wonder it has been said that some of the money, it's already known what kind of application it has been put to houses in Dubai and so on. So if what we are hearing is true, then we don't need a lot of investigation. I think a point has also reached, whether we are there or not is a question, where we say this is wrong and we deal with it. This is corruption and we deal with it. And the EACC doesn't talk about it, it acts around it. And the DPP doesn't, it doesn't delay on it, prosecutes it. But now here is, we are even being told that it is no longer, it cannot be traced. Sounds like some fairy tale from, Hollywood, which is unfortunate.
So the most outstanding thing is the fact that even while we had this non-edible oil in the storehouses that cannot be consumed in the market, we had the Kenya National Trading Corporation also coming and saying we are intending to buy other edible oils. For me, I read that and I thought this is now, taking Kenyans for
vomiting on our feet.
Yes, indeed, and taking us for monkeys at the end of the day. That we've not really accounted on this particular edible oils. Yet you want, amongst the things that you want to import, including rice, is also the edible oils, and investigation has not even been carried out on why this stalled and why there were inflated prices, and why also they are of poor quality that cannot be consumed, because the idea was that we will have dispensers all over the country, and it is the Kadogo economy. You'll go with your bottle and you'll just get some, even 500 milligrams of cooking oil if you want to use. That cannot happen. We were promised that will be happening in 4 months. Things have changed from that particular docket. Let's hear from you, Prof.
You are skipping.
Sorry, I lost my sequence. Professor, kindly, let me just give it to Prof. We'll come back to you. Prof.
I think that, Debal, first of all, it's good to say the following, that first of all, we have to find some solutions around this. But as I talk about the issue of oil, it reminds me when we were in university, we used to train ourselves how to fry an egg without oil. There's a way you put water, you warm it until when the water is boiling, then if you pour the egg, actually the water with the salt you can prepare an egg and eat if you're really poor. And this is how we survive in university. So I also agree with my senior there, Martin. I think for the first time we're agreeing very well that it is not an essential thing for even government to go into unless it's driven by profiteering. And I think what we have to understand that what is the solution to some of these problems the government needs to seek. For me, if there is one thing we need to go and solve urgently is the issue of the Kenya currency, because it is driving us crazy. It has a lot of impact in the economy if you look. Like as economists, we've done calculation by found that any time the dollar, the Kenya loses a unit to the dollar, we increase our debt by 40 billion shillings without borrowing anything to our debt book. And I think that is driving the economy crazy, because when you need to repay it, you don't have money, and if you don't repay it, everything boils down around there.
So it's a moving target.
It's a moving target. So if you look at now, somebody's projecting that the Kenya shillings can depreciate to around 167 by Christmas. I think it won't, but if it does, we'll have added something to do with 160 billion shillings to our debt book without borrowing a single coin. And I think that the more we do that, actually now even we are not digging the hole, but even the hole is being dug for us without us digging any hole now. And I believe that's the second thing is about this debt issue thing. There are so much illegal debt that if I was the president, I would not pay them. For example, we have a case in court with Linda Jami, where
could you talk about the edible oils, or is it related to the edible oils? Yes,
the edible oil is so corruption. There's no need of explaining it here. In fact, it was what this government, when they came, they wanted to have the quickest means to make money. I remember even this edible oil, that money they are talking about, where has that money come from? Do you think that money has not been borrowed to be put on edible oil, which is now has backfired, but Kenyans need to pay that debt? They are actually so related. The decision the government is making is so schizophrenic that you cannot be able to tell her. That's why when I was in court the other day, I just said that, I told you, the judge, Justice Majanja, that you are sending us back to the states to have mercy. We have run away from highness, and we are sending out to highness to solve our problem, because he was very harsh and he has to stop me and told me to sit down. And I still keep those words. I was just withdrawing because of the fact that I wanted him to give me a chance to continue developing my point, but I still believe we are being ruled by highness. And remember, during the campaign, there was some propaganda where they were showing Rigathi Gachagua and Ruto as hyenas coming to State House. And I'm sure now they have arrived. It is actually happening. And as you talk about the issue of, of these guys who are hunting and gatherers, I agree with that language because of the fact that if you look at the current cabinet, they invested something to be in government. And that's why Ruto cannot fire them. Even they have told Ruto they cannot apologize to him. Ruto has been taken over by these people. And if you find somebody like Aisha Jumwa, seriously, we know very well it cannot work. Moses Kuria being in charge of public sector, which will be the fulcrum of running government. I think the president just needs to change that administration if he's serious. The day Kenyans will know that he's serious will be how he selects the team. You know a coach's intention. When you saw Arsenal beating Lens 6-0, you could see the team Mikel Arteta chose. But if you choose a team that has never scored any goal, cannot score any goal, and will never score any goal, it's very clear there's no goal being scored. You can wait forever. It's like waiting for, Waswahili wanasema, kungoja ferry airport. Wezi ngoja ferry ifike airport. Ferry will always be at the port. It can never come to the airport. So I want to just talk about, just a highlight about this issue about the debt thing, that the debt is illegal, and this is affecting us in every way. Appropriation Act says we only have 2.1. Treasury 6.1, State House 11.1 trillion. Now, this cannot be arithmetic error. The truth of the matter is that there were money which were borrowed which never came to the economy, but the economy is being told to pay it back. Nikama, someone telling you that you should vomit bread and you never swallow that bread. So economy is being choked by monies which were never actually put in the economy. And if I was the president, I'll declare those debt illegal and tell IMF that you know that even if you want to lend to me, you must follow the legal procedure of lending. And then there are commercial banks that lend money to Kenya at an interest rate of 50%. I do not understand where was the source of the money. Did the money come from heaven or from the moon or from Plato, where transport was very high, that you can lend an economy 50%. I would ask them to either restructure those debts or forgo them. And that's the problem. I need to take this decision quickly. Then you talked about the issue of budgeting, and they discussed it here along 3. I could not be able to speak. I wrote an article by saying, if you want to grow this economy, move away from national budgeting first to sub-national budgeting, where you go to the county level, set up a budget looking for each and every county priority. Then when the counties will grow, collect for you revenue and all that, the national economy will grow. Like, for example, Taita Taveta is being counted as one of the small counties. They're receiving less money in terms of let's say, exchequer when they're allocating funds, because they're saying a small county. But the potential, they're looking at population, but the potential of Taita Taveta in terms of resources is very high. Why don't you go there and invest in these resources, convert those resources into revenue, and be able to go far, rather than pretending that you're solving the issue from just a political situation.
Right.
And let me just finish the run on privatization.
No, we'll come
because
to
it's very key.
you're raising a lot of issues, so that I don't want just to have a hodgepodge of issues that we're discussing. This just goes sequentially on edible oils, then we'll actually sum up with maybe the privatization bit, if we've got time. As I warned you that we'll be clocking out by around 8:30. I wanted just to pick up on this edible issues as edible oil issue, as we're winding up on it so far where it is, and to talk about just the general or the broader perspective on how we don't care, and there's a disconnect. We as leaders, as long as it is us and we're never gazing on myself, I don't care about your health. If it is true that the way the health officials are saying it is not for public consumption, how did we even have the audacity and the temerity to let it be trucked to our ports and be also in the warehouses and tell Kenyans, come with your pail and come and fetch good edible oil at the end of the day? Isn't that a deception you as leaders, you are actually perpetrating in the first place? And it goes to show you don't care about my health. And here you are as well rolling out the SHIF, that you want to make sure Kenyans are actually kept healthy, but we are spewing diseases and sicknesses to them.
Absolutely. And Dibal, issue here is that we are on our own, and that our leaders will sacrifice us at any altar. I mean, if NADCO is anything, it's not about us, it's about them. If the issues around the food and perhaps the quality of food that we've seen, the poor quality of food that we've seen come in, we've had that on maize, we've had that on sugar, now we're hearing that on edible oil. We have signals that are coming to us that we have leaders who will not care what happens to our health. We've had these things internationally on even COVID vaccines and the use of DNA and stuff like that to make vaccines. So at some point, one has to ask. I mean, it goes on, and they ask, what are people like Bill Gates interested in? Why are they interested in matters other than what they are good at in terms of Microsoft and so on, health and so on? So we have a situation that we must respond to by simply saying that we must keep praying that God takes care of us, because the leaders that He has given us, God has given us, are not taking care of us, because we are told leaders come from God. And so if that is the case, then we should be actually asking, who and how shall we have Kenyans saved from their own leaders and from their own appetites? I mean, earlier on, it's Mheshimiwa Kirwa who was saying that as a society we've lost it. And maybe that's the other point, that if we were ourselves more conscious and more, our moral basis would be higher, then we would also demand of leaders. But it appears that leaders have understood us, have accepted us the way we are. We have accepted them the way we are. And the disaster or the possible dangers that we are going through are such that we are all exposed. Our health is exposed. Our medical facilities are not up to standard. So basically you're saying that if you're sick, you're on your own, leave alone if you pick up food that will end up poisoning you.
Right.
I want to comment on that issue. I haven't done it. I think the big picture is, if you're going to buy, import contaminated contaminated oil or contaminated sugar, the problem this country has had is we have never ever earned a Kenyan government. The purpose of government is to protect its people, to make the life of its people better. We had a continuation of the colonial government up to the point where Kibaki came in. We had a break under Kibaki. We had something that resembles a Kenyan government under Kibaki. After that, we went back to the exploitative colonial government. So you have a government that exploits its own citizens. You said very rightly that they should have been investigated. They should have been. Who is supposed to investigate? The government. Who is doing that corruption? The government. So this is the unluck of the Kenyan people. I mean, the other day you saw Ishelema coming into office and he confronted with 1.2 million or billion to buy cars. If you saw that video. And he asked them, did the former president have cars? Yes. Are those cars moving? Yes. Then I'm going to use those cars. And they cancelled that. We cannot produce a leader who can think like that in this country, because like we said, we have hunters and gatherers as leaders, which is what the British, when they were here,
I think we can object that.
That's what they were.
We can object that. We cannot say we cannot produce leaders who can lead well. I also wanted to...
Have we produced other than Kibaki?
I also wanted to withdraw Kiro's report to say that all Kenyans are corrupt. Those are very serious statements. If you say all Kenyans are corrupt, there is no hope. I believe there is. We cannot tell our children that there is no hope.
I think, Prof, you are not answering. I said that we have an exploitative government, beginning with the colonial government. It handed over the exploitation to Jomo Kenyatta, who handed the exploitation to the other president, who handed then Kibaki came. We got a break. We got a government that thought irrationally. You see, my colleague here has explained very well that there is no logic in importing the oil. It's not food. And what we were missing then was food. But somebody did that person into making money. That person is an exploiter. It's not working for Kenya. So we have Sundist people here. We have not produced a nationalistic, patriotic government.
We have not, but
under
we will.
Article 10.
But we will.
Yes, we will. Of course, we will. But we haven't produced so far.
But if we come on this setup and we only you know regurgitate the issues that actually are there and not coming up with a prime solution, I think also we'll be doing injustice to fellow Kenyans.
Actually, to be fair, to be fair, the more he had a heart, the president after Kenyatta, we under a president with a heart. There are limitations, but at least the sadistic nature that we have seen subsequently, that one was an exception, just as much as Kibaki was an exception. But you need to trace that to the mindset of the Kenyan government, unless we change that mindset, okay? And we generate new generation of leaders who are truly patriotic, who will not enter into Andiro like that. Because patriotism and nationalism cause them to duty to protect the people of Kenya, to make life better for the people of Kenya. Until we reach there, we will be buying sugar with the mercury, we will be buying edible oils, because the whole idea is to find a way of stealing the money. You see, government money must be stolen through a project. This is why we are meaningless project. So,
but Professor, just with all due respect, I'm talking to so many Kenyans, and I will tell you, Kenyans in 2027 will not elect a politician. They'll elect someone who can fix the issue. And I'm telling you.
Let's hear from Kipruto.
Let me just try to
sequentially, because of time as well, we'll come to you, so that at least it's not a debate between you and Prof. We have also...
I enjoy this kind of discussion because it takes us to another level. But the main problem is that I said, and I will just paraphrase it.
Yes.
Most Kenyans
do
not really understand why they elect leaders. Because immediately after elections, if you go to any constituency, they'll be talking bad of the person they have just elected. And even us now, majority of them, according to Jabukati, voted for William Ruto. And the same Kenyans, today, if you went anywhere, even in Wasingishu, where the president comes from, they are crying because he has not reflected the picture he had painted to them. That yes, as a farmer, you will rise from the bottom to another level. He had talked about the situation of animal feed. There's no animal feed that is affordable today anywhere in Kenya, unless it is just normal grass. But let's go back to this edible oil. You remember there was the sugar laced with mercury, which also disappeared somewhere in Thika. Now the edible oil has disappeared. My worry is not the disappearance. Where is it going to? Is it going to be repackaged and imported again under the guise that this is now okay? Now, if the time they declared that it was unfit for human consumption, the next step would have been to take it and burn it. Destroy it completely.
Or maybe there is no edible oil at all.
Yeah.
So that
or there is no oil.
There's no oil. If you have the edible oils, why won't you open the warehouses so that we know?
Yeah. That would have been better if they stole the money and they never imported any oil. That is okay.
Is limited.
But now, if it is laced with poison, why are we poisoning Kenyans? We already have enough diseases, and our health system is not able to carry along the people who are sick in hospital. Why do we allow more diseases to get in? So my prayer is that I hope the edible oil or the oil never got into Kenya at all. They have stolen the money. We don't care about the money because they will still continue.
They don't poison us.
But isn't it a crime for you not to actually allow access to where people want to investigate?
It is a crime.
Why can't you open the warehouses? I mean, is there any rhyme or reason? Is it a key which is lost?
It is a crime. It is a crime, but the main challenge...
Who is doing a senior government officers?
The main challenge with this regime is that Kenyans have given them excess trust. This is not a regime you can trust for a minute. Really, today, even without Raila, Kenya should be going to the street for this regime to get out of town. Because it is not worth the paper it is printed on as a government. The dispatch paper or the cabinet dispatch is not worth the paper it is written on. Because this is a regime that has gone rogue. It doesn't care. It is really destroying the very livelihoods of Kenyans. And Kenyans are still, many of them, because they voted for this regime, they are ashamed and they are not able to say anything. Otherwise, they know this regime has failed.
There's a minister who went live on television and told Kenyans that Kenyans are destined to die anyway.
So we give them an additional rope.
So we add them more means to die.
Yes.
It is completely an irresponsible government. And I don't want to mention names like you said. But according to me, I told you there's a leadership crisis in this country. And let us just learn what happened in some parts of the world. Kenyans need to experiment, then they'll get it right. Even Americans tried Democrats, they tried Republicans, then they tried black Americans, then they tried a businessman like Trump, then they took an old man like Joe Biden. So what choice are they making next one? Because we tend to elect leaders of yesterday. You tend to elect leaders to solve yesterday's problem. We need to look at what is Kenya now and where is Kenya needs to go. Kenya is at the vibe of very serious industrial revolution. Kenya is ripe for technological revolution. Kenya is ripe for a very powerful sports music industry. Which leader can take us there? I remember what happened, for example, if you just mentioned a company, KCB took Joshua Ogara when they had 2 million customers. And Joshua Ogara, being a young CEO, very vibrant with technology, Joshua Ogara grew the bank from 2 million customers to 17.5 million customers without adding any brick and mortar branch. It was more on tech. So he took advantage of the tech in the banking sector and grew it. Our Kenyans think that when we elect, because in 2027 you can elect another leader because of what Ruto has done for you, but you do not know which leader can take you from where you are to go to the next level. And I can tell you, as a strategist, when I actually even sit in boards of Lexi, I actually tell you, don't elect your CEO or choose your CEO based on how bad your first CEO was. Because, for example, if a CEO was very good in marketing and the company grew in numbers but never thought about how to make the assets be valuable, then now you bring a finance CEO when there's more opportunity to elect a marketing CEO. We elected Kibaki because we are of what Moi did to us. Thanks God, economy worked, but Kibaki was not very good in the issue of dealing with the war in Somalia. Then we elected now Ruto because of the problem we had with Uhuru. But have the problem with Uhuru is the here now? No, we have different problems. When we shall be electing the next president in 2027, should we elect them because we were in Haslanomics? Now we need to move to, I don't know, to what nomics? Dynasty to Haslanomics. Has it gained us? So I'm thinking that Kenyans need serious civic education because we have to offer solutions. So I'm sure development partners have withdrawn funds on civic education. They're putting funds in things like LGBTQ instead of putting funds in things like democracy. And I think that there's a need for us as Kenyans, and in fact even you as Media House, thank you very much, that we need proper civic education, because giving up on Kenyans is not my portion. I would like that Kenya that we dream of. We must have a Kenyan dream, and let us have hope on people and educate these young people, educate our people, because the Bible says, my people suffer because of lack of knowledge. Let's educate them. That's why I'm writing a book, Solomonic Economics. Let's be Solomonic in this situation rather than being Haslanomic, for example. And I think these are solutions rather than sitting here and crying. Me, I'm not here to cry. Even the Bible says, do not cry too long because your tears can stop you from seeing sunrise. Me, I can see sunrise. I can see a new dawn. I'm very optimistic and hopeful. We'll get it right. Thank you. If I'm giving up, I should leave the country and go somewhere else. Right. So, Mheshimiwa, if you give up, go to Uganda then. Maybe go to Tanzania. Me, I'll be in Kenya because I'm hopeful.
These are the natures of the birth pangs, because we've been promised, of course, things. We just wait a little bit longer and things will turn around, given the next 1 year, 2 years. So this is just the birth pangs, the labor pangs that we have to go through. What is your assessment?
You see, when I listen to my good friend, Professor Ogola, I think politicians are cut from the same cloth. He now thinks that things are going to be okay, and the rest of us who are talking about things being difficult have no hope. There are same problems we're experiencing where you overpromise because you think that what people need are promises is what is haunting us. The reality is that we need serious strategies, and we need all hands on the deck. This is the place where you don't say CC, them. No, you are in government, for heaven's sake. You are in leadership at this point. You have the reins of power. You have the taxes you are collecting. Now, do that you purpose to do. Forget about. And by the way, there is every need for us to also advise even the Deputy President and others that what you say is important, because people are hearing. If you say we are in a bad place, we are in a hole, you are diminishing people's confidence in the system, and therefore even anybody who would have wanted to invest will not invest. So first acknowledge, yes, we have a challenge, but ask that we can pull out together and recognize that there will be every need to have everybody and every skill and every resource and every human person or every other person that has something to contribute to be on board. This is not a time to isolate. This is not a time to blame. This is not a time to promise. This is a time to do. So that the promises are over. We are in government. There's a government now. Let's deliver what we promised the government, to the people. And then people will see the difference. And they might be able to make the point, whether it is less attempt or good attempt, but no results or something like that.
Thank you.
So my idea about our politicians and generally about ourselves is, let us minimize the hope that we generate to the point that we can achieve higher rather than promise heaven when we are still on earth.
Right. I just wanted to tackle a bit, because I can see Prof is in a tearing rush.
Yeah,
Prof, you never warned me. I can see you're very antsy. You're looking at your watch. What's happening?
He has talked to me.
You've been called. You know,
he has talked to me. He needs to do something.
Your phone has been buzzing and vibrating inside your court.
Join this government, but he has an emergency to deal with.
This is sort of an ad hoc call that you never anticipated. So, but we want to just briefly hear from you, especially with the blockage of the courts regarding the decision that they made regarding the housing levy, and also SHIF on Monday. Now the courts have intervened. They're saying this is an illegality. All the calls.
Sorry. Okay. Yes.
Prof, if you can just TV etiquette.
Yes.
Yeah,
What surprised me about that ruling is it was good. The court did good, but then the court is somehow also becoming political. Yeah. You can't declare something unconstitutional, then give any grace period, because something is illegal. It is illegal. Yeah. What this friend of mine will call ab initio, and that's it. It's there. But now, to give that 45 days, you realize this court also is becoming interesting, that we may actually need another sanctuary. There was a radical sanctuary or something of the court at one time. We may actually need it. So now, these taxes, this SH whatever, that is how in management, you realize the manager is failing. What happens in management is you perfect what you find. And then, only then, can you try now to innovate into new enterprises? So, the government came and found National Health Insurance Fund. Without perfecting that one, they introducing new system. And that new system, of course, comes with the added taxes. Now, when you look at this, it's like these people never went to any economics class. Because the economics 101 will tell you that any economy has two sides, production and consumption. Once you undermine consumption, you have actually undermined production. So I don't understand what is the objective of creating new institutions. I don't know the objective of adding taxes. I mean, every time you create a new institution, before perfecting the old one you found, and then adding all the taxes that have come with the creation of these institutions. This is an indication that there is no strategic thinking from the CEO, from the Chief Executive Officer. It's an indication that there is no strategy, and if there is no strategy, you are floating, then the country does need prayers. Because you expect a very coherent policy to emerge from the government because of the power the government has in purchasing knowledge. There is no one else has more power than the government in buying knowledge. But when you see erratic policies which are not predictable, then you have reason to get worried.
All right, keep it up.
I fear this cabinet of President William Ruto does not operate. Why do I say so? I say so because policies that are contradictory in terms of implementation are policies that have not been funneled through the cabinet, because any minister who wants to bring changes must take to the cabinet, prosecute his paper. Upon prosecution of the paper, his colleagues will ventilate and will get the advice of some of the experts in different aspects of it. But the way I see it is that perhaps people are trying to kill all institutions so that with the attendant corruption in them, they die, because that's what many businessmen do. You fold up a company just because you want to avoid some kind of going under receivership, and then you move with a new entity, now acquiring new liabilities and new assets. This is something that I feel, this killing of all institutions to bring new ones may be the main objective. Now, finally, I'm worried about this economy. I'm not an economist, but I've been an economic commentator for quite some time. And I feel by 2025, this economy will not be tenable. The debt burden will be so heavy, unemployment will be so huge, and the cost of living will be beyond the roof. I'm not seeing any reverse on some of these processes. You know, when you go home, people are talking about it, but of course they have a problem. They do not understand the economy. They say economy imeenda juu, which means economy imeenda juu means the economy is doing well, instead of saying the cost of living has gone up. So this is my worry. Everywhere I go today, or for the last 1 week I was away from this town, I realized there is abject poverty almost in every corner of this country. It is worrying me, and why am I worried? I'm worried because I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and I'm also existing Kenyan who needs this country to be better. Well, I may go to Uganda for other reasons, and if I went to Tanzania, I was there in my formative years, and I still love Tanzania, despite the fact that they don't like us.
So the Federation of Kenya Employers have indicated 70,000 jobs have been lost, and the number still is going up because the current tax regime is not really favorable for the employers as well. So come next year, maybe they just want people to celebrate Christmas.
As he speaks about it,
yes.
Because the government is saying that they have created 120,000 jobs.
Where?
You didn't see that statement this week? And on this other side,
digital highway as well,
are saying we have 570,000.
Yeah. So this, where do we get?
I believe them. I trust the employers.
You trust the employers?
Yeah, let me tell you, I've been a consultant for FKE for a long time. Even I'm the one who released the COVID-19 surveys. There's so many work I do for them through ILO. And if there's any voice that can be listened to, is FKE. You know, there's a coup that took place in Kenya when the FKE was the to-go to, if you wanted even to connect with State House, they would be able to find all these things. Then this KEMSA became like a political arm that now they are more political and actually mostly sometimes in bed with the government rather than actually doing their work. FKE has remained very independent, and I've always told them, being an independent voice will give you more credibility than running to get credibility or standing next to somebody in power. And that's why I like to be independent-minded, and I think that FKE is doing a very good job. And truth be said, my brother, that the president is not an economist. He doesn't understand it. And it is difficult for someone to give you a vision. And that's why I want to tell Professor why Kibaki got it right. You could debate economy with Kibaki understands you, and he understands you. You know, when you are a good leader, you can say, I can hire somebody. Even Miguna told Sonko that even if you bring a guy there to be a deputy, you cannot delegate your vision. You know, if a rabbit passed in the middle of us here, and you are the only one who saw it, will help you chase the rabbit until you say, by the way, did that rabbit pass? Then we leave you with your rabbit, because we have not seen the rabbit. So the Kenyan rabbit has not been seen by William Ruto. And he cannot figure out what it is. And for that matter, we will only be having trouble of him thinking he's thinking about it, but the truth of the matter is that they are not thinking about it. And the other thing which is critical, I don't want to go to small stories. Do you know Kenya's official fiscal policy? We don't have one. Without a fiscal policy, you cannot even predict how the Kenya shilling will be working. That's why they are always having this thing called IPRA. You wake up today, they have changed prices. They have changed. Even we cannot predict our Christmas budget. Like now, my family wants to meet our Christmas. We don't know who will travel, because if fuel becomes 300, some of us will not travel. We will just stay at home and be on Zoom, or maybe celebrate on WhatsApp group. And if you cannot even be able to know how much fuel will be there, if you are an investor, how much would you put in the economy? Can you predict your profit 6 years down the line? Economy must be predictable. That's why there are always economic tools like stimulus, isn't it? And subsidies to keep an economy predictable. And this one is not. The other thing is, do you know why the president is traveling in every part of town without knowing what he's getting from every country? There's no foreign policy. A foreign policy guides even international engagement in other countries, and even if you want to get foreign direct investment. Tanzania doubled their foreign direct investment in the last 6 months. For us, we are dipping it. The dollar to the Kenyan shilling is suffering because we are making too much noise in Kenya that money cannot come to Kenya. When the plane of dollar is flying over Kenya, when they find Kenya so noisy, they land in Tanzania, they land in Uganda, they land in other countries. So for me, let all Kenyans be good. And that's why I'm trying to tell even Professor and my brother here, if you hear, someone listening to us from the US telling people that this economy is in trouble and there is no hope, then how can they come to invest your country if you are a Kenyan who was a minister in the government saying there is no hope? We are ourselves our enemies with our tongue. But for me, what I'm asking, I'm not saying I'm putting my hands under the sun, but at the same time, I went to Singapore and Japan. I saw young people inviting people to come to their country, to help them build their country. Have you seen any Kenyan on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, talking nicely about my country has wildlife, my country has this one? Come and see. All of us are just poisoners. Prof. And I say that the fact that we are not able to bring things together, we are actually in serious trouble. And then just another thing to just discuss about this hustler thing. No, just wait.
Why do you allow Professor to throw so many ideas?
You said the hustler fund. I just want to explain why is what you're getting wrong.
I think there was interjection from the you want to...
Professor, your president is going to find jobs in Saudi Arabia and in Germany.
No.
And you are talking about young people not being positive in the street. The point is, I think you should make this point very clear, that you need a coherent policy.
Yes, that I say.
On economics and on foreign. And the coherent policy will deliver the country. Yes. Because business people will predict us, and then they will bring their money, and the business people within Kenya will predict the economy, and they will put money in the economy. Yes. The shilling is not depreciating because the people are not investing. Shilling is depreciating because corruption is being done in foreign currency.
Yes.
Okay. If you want corruption of 20 million shillings, I tell you, go and bring me in foreign currency, and then the money is not being invested here; it's going to Dubai and the Cape Town, because corruption itself cannot actually damage the economy if it remains within the economy.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say in short here is that if we had a fiscal policy, there's a border person who spoke millions. He told the president, just put the price of fuel to 500, then leave it there. Because if you can't predict taxes you'll pay, you can't predict the fuel prices, you can't predict the edible oil. Now, if you go to the supermarket today, which oil are you picking? There's so much that you can't predict here. And even the tools that he's being praising here, I saw the news here telling people that Hustler Fund has performed. I saw some statistics that Hustler Fund has reduced the Fuliza. Now, look, if you borrow Hustler Fund at 8%, and the circles want to lend out to members at 10%, you are killing circle with the Hustler Fund, yet Hustler Fund is a slash fund. yet you are killing the cooperative movement, which has been the mainstay of the economy. I'm not seeing things working here. Then our deputy president goes in broad daylight and said, the economy is dilapidated. Now, who will invest in a dilapidated economy? And you're telling young people you want to borrow the money to begin a business in a dilapidated economy. The confidence in the economy is dipping and dipping and dipping.
Thank you.
I even told him, breathe fresh air and positivity in the economy.
Right. We need to wind up. Let's get headline thoughts from Dr. Martin Olo.
It is our country.
Yeah.
We need to live in it. We want to be constructive, even as we offer alternative views. It is a season for this regime. They'll do their bit. Certainly another season will come for another regime, but the country is a going concern. We have interests, we have children to bring up, we have health care to think about, we have infrastructure to work on. All these things are important for our own prosperity. So, much as we will not always agree,
thank you,
but we have every reason to still be hopeful and be Kenyans.
Right. And even you should tell the vice chancellors they should be hopeful as well, because I've seen them getting worried that we have less professors. Almost 20,000 professors in this country who will take over.
But I'm jobless and I'm qualified.
You're jobless and you're qualified.
Yes.
And one of them here,
we have a professor here.
Yeah. You don't need.
So let's hear from Professor Ngitel Naituli.
I think our leaders need to start behaving as if they are living in Kenya. You can't, they have put some parastatals on zero. Some parastatals have national security implications. Others have no value, like KICC, because of how we feel about it. There's an idea that you can simply hand over to an individual or to a foreign Kenya pipeline or any port is something that really Kenyans need to begin now thinking about and begin to understand that they have the power to stop, because our leaders seem to be like they are vacating Kenya, like they are liquidating the country with the intention of leaving us here. So I think that we need to stop this process of privatization. If the government feels that they cannot run these institutions, then they realize the best thing to do is to resign and hand over power to those who can do it. Because look, the Chinese companies that we are in this country to do our own, they are government owned, but then they have good managers who are able to organize those assets and earn the value. So if the current managers are not able to do it, the solution is not selling.
Thank you. Your closing remarks.
Yes, I think in my closing remarks, I want us to make it clear that if you cannot run an economy, you do not off-take it to any other individual. Look at the universities. Public universities are not doing well. Private universities, they are started and they seem to be thriving. Why? There is some serious management involved. If we cannot hire the best managers for our institutions, leave them alone. Don't make political decisions. You kill them, then you want to sell them. It worries me, especially when you talk of 11 parastatals that you want to sell. Some of them are critical because they were formed for the purpose of ensuring that the economy has some kind of buffer.
Thank you. Right. Prof, finally.
Mine is to say that there is a leadership crisis in the country, and I want to call upon every Kenyan to come and pull together around this, because we are not lacking resources, we are not lacking talent, we are not lacking opportunities, we are just lacking leadership. And the only change that was needed to be done in 2002 is to change the leadership. And when we got it right that time, everything went well. And I would like to state that if you cannot even run a KICC, you cannot even run a state house, can you run government? Because running government is more complex than running an hotel. Anybody who cannot run a hotel cannot run government. So the truth that is happening is that Kenya Kwanza cannot lead Kenya.
Thank you.
But we put our hopes on God.
Right, thank you. All right, gentlemen, I really want to appreciate your input this morning. And we hope, of course, the leadership of the day is taking a keen interest in what you're saying. And the necessary course corrections can be done. And we also have to celebrate the smooth with the rough as well. It is not all gloom and doom. At the end of the day, when we switch on our televisions, we are belly aching and, of course, complaining. We also have to look on the other side of the coin. What are the goods that have come through? Also